Hey, so one of my mutuals pointed out they were looking for a walkthrough for Clip, and I keep telling my grandfather I'll set one up for him because he uses it, and some of my friends use it. So I figure why not just get it out of the way now. So I'm just gonna start with stuff that I already know, stuff that's not like super deep into the program, just basic things, just to get you guys started. So obviously, you guys know where to start a new file. Uh, you can set it up based off of pixels, inches, whatever. I only ever use inches and pixels because it's either print or posting, and that's it. I'm just going to keep this small. These are for comics, these two, or animation. I'm only going to be using this one, and you can set the color of your canvas. I like a light gray because it's not going to mess up with my eyes. And this is basically what my clip looks like. If you know that you're not going to use it, or you're looking at it and you're not sure what it is, just X out the window. You don't need it. So all I have is my Navigator, my color wheel, color history, and swatches. And this is your color set is just swatches, and that's literally just things I've saved for particular reasons or the pre-made ones that were there. Color history is if I use a color, any color, let's do like that one, it will show up there. And this is the same if I drop a color, it'll do the same, because it's just keeping track of stuff. So if I realize later on I really liked this one, I can come back and pick it. Then you have your layers. These have different options in them as well. The lighthouse means that certain things like your selection tools or your paint bucket, if you have the right thing selected, you gotta have that lighthouse, it will refer to that layer. So if I make a new layer, this has the lighthouse on it, I've got the lighthouse selected for refer to multiple layers, and I pick a different color, let's go with that one, it will only refer to that layer's stuff. But it's not for, that doesn't work for absolutely every tool, so you want to just keep an eye out for that. I don't usually use it, but there it is. I don't use that, I don't know what it is. This is to lock the layer, you can't do anything to it. This is your opacity lock, so turning off that other one. I can now color to my heart's content without getting into the transparent parts. And this also works with things that are a little bit transparent themselves. So like, let's just say I have this gradient, and I turn on the opacity lock, and I switch to a different color. It will keep that same amount of opacity change within that thing. Then you have your new raster layer, which is just your regular drawing layer. A new vector layer. If you use this, you can move things around to get a really specific kind of line art. It's not really truly vector, it's more just if you're really picky. So let me show you, it's easier to show. I've got my line, let's just use this one, and I can click this, and it will treat it kind of like vector. So if you are doing like lettering, or if you're very particular about your line art, you can also change like the weight of it based off of those little nodules, and you can simplify it too, but that's a whole lot of exploration, and I'm going to let you guys kind of figure that out. Or if anybody wants a specific video on that, we can talk about it, but just bear in mind, I don't use this very often at all. I prefer the actual manual labor of outlining things. Your delete button is just a little trash can, pretty straightforward. Layer mask, I don't use these. I use something similar, which is just a clipping mask. So let's just say I have in this, in here I've got this. This is my picture. Let's say it's like the flats of my character. I have a new layer. The one above it has that clipping mask on. You can tell it's got that little pink thing. So I can then color and shade inside of my character like so. So that's super useful. That way you don't have to keep selecting things over and over again. And then you have a new folder, which is just like with Photoshop, and I believe Clip does this, or Sai does it too. I don't actually know for sure. and it's just a folder. If you're using the modes, the filters, it will only affect things inside of the folder unless you have the whole folder set up. So if I set this to multiply, I can then go to a new layer underneath it and just doodle around, and everything in that layer will essentially be multiply to things below the folder. But anyway, let's go ahead and just delete these. Boop, boop. New layer. And then this is just to color your layers for categorization purposes. It's nothing else than, like, boop, it's yellow now. Boop, it's green now. And you can do that over here. As you can see, I have been doing it. Now let's go ahead and transition to that. So these are not your tools. These are the categories that show you the folders that show you your tools. So in here I have everything from moving my layers around, or grid, or pattern, or tone, or what have you. Just a ton of stuff. And all your different rulers. And you can move these around. If you click onto and drag around the actual tool itself, you can make it into its own tab up in the selection thing. There it is. Or you can put it into tabs. You can drag it and move it over here and make it its own category, or place it into a new category. And that's what I've done. So this is going to feel a little unfamiliar to you because it's going to look, I've got it all customized. So you can also rename them and color them. These little colors are not on the category. Unfortunately, you have to do it individually. If you right click it and you go to settings of subtool, it is literally just your UI settings. Was it named? What's the icon, and what's the color? And it'll tell you some other stuff in here, but you can't change these here. But if you go down here, your tool properties, and this is a window. All of these are windows. So tool property, and like these are also things you can use. I just use this because some of those are in there. There's a little wrench, and you can click that. And what this is, ooh, that's very big, is everything in here can be seen in here, in that little tab. All you gotta do is turn it on. Bam, and bam. Bam, and bam. And it's just what you want to do with those brushes. For the moment, as you're getting used to the UI, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Unless you're like drawing and you come to a brush that you really like and you're like, oh, but I can't change the opacity. It's only letting me change the density, which is different. You can come in here and find, well, where's is it density? You can just look for it and turn it on. I think it's under stroke. There it is, brush density. Because it's not the same as opacity. And then ink is opacity. So that's where you actually customize the brush individually. I think you can lock it so it doesn't do anything, but again, I don't use that, so I don't really know. You can reset everything to how it was, but, you know, whatever. Now your Navigator, let's just go ahead and give it a reference point. It does everything that side does. You can zoom in, you can rotate, you can set it back, you can rotate and zoom in by degrees. Let's put this back here. And you can flip and flip. And this does not affect your picture, it just affects how you see it. So when you save it, and you save it while it's flipped and upside down, it will not save as flipped and upside down. It is just how you're looking at it. But these same icons show up if I decide to transform, which is either Control-T or this little icon up here, which, oh, whoops, I've got Keep Original Image on. You can make like reflections of things with that. And then if you want to like change it from being scaled perfectly, you can turn off aspect ratio, or you can hit like Control or Alt, or a mixture of things. Here's Control and Alt, not Alt, and here's Control and Shift, and here's Alt and Shift. I don't think that really does anything different. and you can cancel an OK and flip things around, and it's a lot of fun, and it's worth looking into. There are other transformation and color changes, so here's where you have like hue saturation and brightness and control and whatever. Transformation, mesh transformation's fun, you could just straight up flip it, some other things. Changing your canvas size. I remember one person I was working with one time didn't know that crop was under here, so there it is if you need it. Animation, if you're not animating, you don't need it. Layer settings and how you can like merge it. Selection settings. Things that you can and can't view or turn off and on, different kinds of snapping. Filter is exactly what you think it is. And all your windows as you need them. Now, with selection, some of those things are up here. You have your undo and redo buttons. You can delete everything in your layer. If you have something selected, it will only affect the selection. And that counts for other things like, let's say, the fill tool. So if I only have that selected, it's only going to select, but if I deselect, like this one, it'll do the whole layer. You can also invert your selection. So I've clicked that, and now everything outside of what I've selected is what I'm working with instead of the big red spot. And you can hide your selection, which is just hiding those ants. Everything I have selected is still selected. And these are different snapping things. Like I said, you can find that up in here as well. And you can get specific. I don't know if this affects the entire drawing and everything here or not, because I don't use this. Each of your tools have a specific snapping mechanism. And so if I were to go into my little settings with that little wrench, you can go into correction and decide what it can, like whether or not it can whether or not it can snap. And it'll snap to grids or to rulers, special rulers you can turn on. And what that means is things like, they've got like figure ruler, special rulers are pretty cool. You can have radial lines, and I use this for my perspective stuff. Parallel curves, concentric circles. I think my absolute favorite is the symmetrical ruler, just because it's fun. So right now I have it set to 2, let's set it to 10. And it's what it sounds like. It's just going to do things symmetrically. Boop, 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 boop. It's just fun. And you can actually move around your rulers too. If I click that and I move it, it will now affect that. So if I want to save my ruler, but I want to work on a layer without having to deal with it, and having to reset it all the time, I will make a new layer specifically to store my ruler in, and then I'll work in here and be like, oh, I want this spot here to be this color, and then this spot here to be that color, and then over here to be this. And then if I move this back in, it's in the same spot, so I can come back again and with like, okay, but I want this like this. It's pretty cool. And this is such a customizable UI. If you don't like any of the stuff over here, you can just click your tab and move it over. Maybe you want it over here. Maybe you want it, I don't know why you'd want it up here. Maybe you want it down here. Maybe you want it connected to a different box. You can move it pretty much wherever. If you want a shortcut of these up here, you can actually drag. So here's the ink one, you can drag it and move it up there. It's just a shortcut. I don't know that it will completely get rid of all of this, but it doesn't remove it from in here. And you can delete it if you want. And that's kind of it, really. Each of these tools is worth playing around with on your own just to sort of get a handle of it. But as long as you are keeping it simple to start, if you want to delete the ruler, you just right-click it and delete ruler. And if you guys have any other questions, like if you want to get me, if you want to get into a specific topic, like brush customization or some of these layer settings or something, just hit me up and I can find time to make another one of these little videos. Until then, I hope this is helpful, and remember, if you're not going to use it and you don't know what it is, wait until you're comfortable with experimenting before you deal with it, and you can just delete the window. It doesn't matter until you need it. So yeah, ciao.